Izuku Midoriya was a third year in junior high. In a world filled with superpowers, he was one of the 20% of the population that didn't have one. These quirks, as they were called, eventually became so prominent that they were all people cared about. This, of course, made him a target for people who think just because they're strong they can do whatever they want. Exhibit A. Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo had a strong quirk that allowed him to make explosions from his hands. He used his power to intimidate and beat down anyone who he saw as weak. Izuku had to deal with Bakugo more than anyone else. Another thing Izuku had to deal with was people pretending to be interested in him and then try to break his heart. He only fell for that twice, though. Oh great, someone was approaching him. Midoriya? One of the more popular girls asked. Yes? Izuku asked politely as to not get attacked by his fellow students. I've had a crush on you for a while now, and I was wondering if you would go out with me? Oh, it's one of these again. Izuku could tell it was another attempt to emotionally damage him. He was annoyed at people doing this, and at that moment, he didn't care about the high chance of being attacked later. This girl was one of the popular ones that obsessed over her beauty, and he knew how much she hated her looks being insulted. No thanks, I've seen mosquitoes more attractive than you. What did you just say to me? The girl asked in surprise and rage. You know the saying you can't put lipstick on a pig? It's completely false. You put it on almost every day. And that's how Izuku got a week of after-school detention and several bruises for not knowing his place. Now Izuku wasn't a weak person. Despite being quirkless, he worked out. He would have gotten martial arts training, but no place would accept a quirkless person. He tried defending himself against bullies a few times, but he was given a suspension for attacking a classmate. So that's why Izuku let himself get hit. The point is that Izuku was working towards his dream of being a hero. He wanted to be like All Might, saving people with a smile, but he knew no one would accept a quirkless hero, so he knew that he would have to settle for underground. At least no one would complain about being rescued by a quirkless if they didn't know. But what's the point? I know you all want to go the hero track. Izuku's teacher yelled as he threw the career aptitude tests in the air. The class erupted with quirks as the students decided that breaking quirk laws was okay if they were excited enough. Don't lump me in with all those extras. The angriest human in the world said I'm the real deal. These losers would be lucky to be sidekicks for some D-list heroes. Several complaints at Bakugo's behavior were made by the class. What are you going to do about it, you extras? I'm going to UA. Bakugo shouted. UA? But their acceptance rate is so low. One of Izuku's classmates said. Which is why it's the only place good enough for me. I'm going to be more popular than All Might himself, and I'll be the richest man alive. And it all starts with UA High. Bakugo shouted. Oh yeah, didn't you also want to go to UA Midoriya? The teacher said, obviously wanting to make Midoriya's life worse. The classroom was quiet for a few seconds before they started laughing. Are you kidding me? There's no way you can get into the hero course without a quirk. The class laughed. Deku. Bakugo screamed at Izuku, who was sitting in his seat looking tired. You're even worse than these rejects. You're quirkless. All right, everyone settle down. Class is starting. The teacher said, postponing Bakugo's attempt at murder. Izuku could feel Bakugo's glare on him for the rest of the school day. After classes were over and the teacher had left, Bakugo walked up to his desk and grabbed Izuku's school notebook that he had doodled in, mistaking it for one of his hero analysis notebooks, which he had stopped bringing to school due to Bakugo attempting to destroy them twice. Are you still scribbling in these stalker notebooks, Deku? Bakugo asked. No, it's my class notes, Izuku said with a deadpan expression. Don't you talk back to me, Deku, Bakugo said before exploding his notebook. All good heroes showed signs of greatness at an early age, Bakugo said. Are you declaring your future incompetence at heroics or something? Izuku thought. Which is why I'm going to be the only one from this crappy school to get into UA, so don't even think about applying, Deku, Bakugo said before walking to the door. If you really want to be a hero, then there might be a way. Pray that you're born with a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Izuku sat in his seat for a few moments, surprised that Bakugo would go that far. Izuku pulled out a notebook and started writing something. Izuku brushed past Bakugo as he left. What were you writing, nerd? Bakugo shouted. I was adding another entry to my Why Katsuki Bakugo Would Be a Horrible Hero, Volume 5 notebook, Izuku said before he started running. Izuku had to go to the store to buy milk since his dad never got it. He was very displeased that this deviation from his normal route gave Bakugo enough time to ambush him. So here he was, Bakugo standing in front of him and milk spilled on the ground a few feet away. Izuku was planning on tanking a hit and running when he fully realized the situation. He wasn't in school. No one would punish him for defending himself. Bakugo threw a punch. Izuku allowed himself to get hit so he could claim self-defense and slammed his fist into Bakugo's face. Izuku heard a crack, and he left Bakugo in shock. Izuku was walking through an underpass, still upset that he failed to get the milk. He didn't notice the green sludge coming out of the sewer until it was upon him. The villain tried to shove sludge down Izuku's throat, but Izuku's mouth was shut tight. It took a few seconds for the villain to pry his mouth open, but when it did, the villain started shoving more sludge down his throat. Izuku saw the thing's eye. It was really close to his forehead, looking directly at him. Izuku did the smart thing and headbutted the eye. The villain started yelling at him. Izuku passed out from the lack of oxygen just as he saw a large silhouette come out of the sewer. "Have no fear, for I am here," were the last words he heard before he passed out. Izuku woke up to someone slapping his face. Izuku pushed the hand away and sat up. He looked at the extremely buff man standing over him. It took a few seconds for Izuku to fully wake up. "All Might!" Izuku shouted in shock. "Ha ha ha ha!" All Might laughed in his booming voice. "Sorry for getting you caught up in my villain hunt, but the sewer system is very hard to navigate. Can I get your autograph?" Izuku asked, not suppressing his fanboy side for once. Izuku opened his notebook to find All Might's signature. One part of him was super happy, but the other part wondered why All Might gave him an autograph before waking him up. "I must go turn this villain into the police," All Might shouted. "Wait, I need to ask you a question," Izuku said. "Sorry, young man, but heroes have to fight time as well." All Might crouched down to jump. In a surge of desperation that Izuku thought he got rid of, he grabbed onto All Might's leg. All Might noticed Izuku hanging off his leg and tried to shake him off. "Young man, I love my fans, but this is too much. Let go." "If I let go, I'll die?" Izuku helpfully pointed out. All Might landed on top of a nearby building. Izuku let go of him and sat down on the roof, catching his breath. "That was very foolish, young man. You could have gotten seriously hurt. Now I must go," All Might said. "Do you think I can be a hero, even without a quirk?" Izuku blurted out, "It's just, I've always wanted to save people and heroics is the best option, but almost no one believes in me, only Mom. I'm asking, is everyone right? Is it impossible for a quirkless person to be a hero?" Izuku looked up to where All Might was, kind of embarrassed at letting that all out, and instead of All Might there was a walking corpse. "This is fine," Izuku said. "All Might just turned into a corpse, and I am alone on the roof with said corpse. I can assure you that I'm not a corpse, but I am All Might," the man said. "So you have a transformation quirk?" Izuku asked, still not fully processing what he was seeing. "Let's just go with that for now, but there's a reason I look like a corpse." All Might pulled up his shirt to reveal a large wound on his left side. "I got this from a villain fight a while back. The fight was never publicized, so you shouldn't know it. The point is that there are some villains who just can't be beaten without power. So can you be a hero? Not without a quirk." Izuku was still sitting on the rooftop. All Might had jumped away after denying Izuku's dream. Sure, the man had offered alternatives such as being a police officer or going into the medical field, but it was still stupid to leave a kid on a roof after crushing his dream. A distant explosion snapped Izuku out of his head. He should head home. Izuku opened the roof access door and left the building. He started to walk home, disappointment the only thing he could feel. Eventually, he broke out of his disappointment and strengthened his resolve. "Who cares if All Might doesn't believe in me? I just have to prove him wrong. I'll be the first quirkless hero," Izuku said out loud. It was then that he heard a squishing sound from behind him. Katsuki was having a bad day. He was expressing his superiority when the teacher had said that Deku of all people wanted to go to UA. Then when he had put Deku in his place, the nerd back talked and said he would be a bad hero. Katsuki had found Deku after school to teach him a lesson, but the nerd punched him in the face and broke his nose. Katsuki had walked through an alley and kicked a bottle to let out some of his frustration. Then he was grabbed by some slimy villain that was trying to possess him, and the heroes were just sitting there. He was drowning in the stuff, and the only thing he could do was attempt to kill the villain that attacked him. Bakugo continued to struggle against the sludge. Death Arms was keeping the crowd back. Kimui Woods couldn't get close due to the fire. MT Lady couldn't fit in the road, and Backdraft was trying to put out the fires Bakugo was making. Backdraft eventually realized that trying to put out the fires is useless, so he started spraying the villain down. The slime villain became diluted because of the water. The villain realized what was happening and dropped Bakugo and escaped into the sewer. Bakugo was taken to the hospital for a mandatory checkup. Izuku once again saw the sludge villain crawl out of the sewer. Izuku immediately bolted, but the villain was too fast. Izuku was trapped again. Only this time, there was no one to save him. He was really going to die this time. Izuku felt himself start to pass out. He didn't want to die. If he passed out, he would be dead. Izuku felt something building up at his neck. Izuku felt a spark between his fingertips. Electricity started to come off of his body, and the sludge villain let go of him. Izuku dropped to the ground, but the electricity was still coming off of him. The sludge villain, seeing that there was no way to get to Izuku without being hurt, crawled back into the sewers. Izuku lay on the ground for a few minutes until the electricity stopped. Then he started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh, but a bitter one. My life really is a joke, isn't it? I spend my whole life quirkless and no one believes in me. My idol tries to destroy my dream, and when I finally solidify my dreams to be the first quirkless hero, I get a quirk. Why is this my life? Izuku stood up and once again started walking home, after coughing up a bunch of sludge, of course. Izuku walked across an intersection under a highway. He was almost hit by a semi-truck, but avoided it. Not getting ice guide today, you stupid semi. Izuku entered his home and went straight to the bathroom. He needed to get the sludge out of his hair. Izuku looked at himself in the mirror. He wasn't expecting to see anything different, but saw a light blue scarf around his neck. It was actually covering his mouth. How did I not notice that? And why does it look so weird? Izuku was correct that the scarf looked abnormal. It didn't look like it was made of fabric. It actually looked kind of, was it moving? Izuku took a closer look at the scarf. It did seem to be swirling around his neck. He tried to remove the scarf, but it wouldn't budge. The scarf felt weird. It was soft, but it felt scaly? Why was it scaly? Izuku started poking at it more, but then he remembered the scarf was covering his mouth. If he couldn't take the scarf off, how could he eat? Izuku tried to pull the scarf off his face. Luckily, he was able to pull the scarf down enough to uncover his mouth. That's good. But what is this thing? It seems unrelated to the electricity I made earlier. Izuku eventually decided to just sleep on it. Izuku went to his room and froze at the sight of his large, All Might collection. Despite Izuku not showing his fanboy side, two others, one look at his room made you think he started a cult around All Might. The number one hero used to make him comfortable, but now he could only hear All Might's discouraging words. So can you be a hero? Not without a quirk. Izuku grabbed one of his All Might action figures. It was one of the cheap ones you could find anywhere. Izuku started gripping the action figure harder. He lifted the action figure to slam it on the ground, but something shot out of his scarf and broke it. Izuku jumped back, startled. The thing that was attached to his scarf came with him. Izuku was hopping around for a couple minutes trying to avoid the thing before he realized it was attached to his scarf. Izuku looked to his left to see another one of the things looking directly at him. Izuku once again jumped back. Izuku took a few seconds to look at what was coming out of his scarf. They were the same color and texture as the scarf. They looked like some form of reptile, snakes, or maybe dragons. In place of an eye, they had wisps of smoke. As Izuku was analyzing them, they retreated back into the scarf. What is going on with today? I've been attacked 3 times, twice by the same villain. I met All Might. He tried to crush my dream, and now I have a quirk. On the bright side, I got to punch Bakugo in the face. I'm too tired for this. How will I explain this to Mom? I'll sleep on it. Izuku looked around at his All Might covered room. I'll sleep on the couch. Izuku woke up to the sound of his mom coming home. She was confused about why he was sleeping on the couch, but she let it go after a couple of seconds. What's with the scarf? It's not cold, Inko asked. Izuku shrugged, deciding to wait to tell Mom about his quirk until he had some form of control over it. Even if she would probably believe him, he wanted to be able to prove that he has a quirk. It's comfortable. All right, just make sure not to overheat or anything. Inko went to her room so she could recover from her late shift. Izuku was already awake, so he tried to find a place where he could safely train his quirk. He didn't have much luck. He pulled out his phone and walked to the kitchen to grab a snack, but he stubbed his pinky toe on the counter and tripped. His phone went flying out of his hand and landed in the toaster. Izuku grabbed his phone out of the toaster and wiped it off on his shirt. Izuku grabbed a piece of bread and put it in the microwave. He grabbed some butter and buttered his bread. Izuku took a bite out of the butter. Man, I love butter with breadcrumbs. Izuku looked at the stick of butter in his hand. Oh great, I've committed a crime because of my lack of energy. Izuku started eating his bread. Izuku was wandering through the city. His quirk came in on Friday, so he hadn't needed to go to school today. He was looking for a place to train his quirk, mostly because legal places to train quirks required an identity, and he hadn't gotten his quirk registered yet. He couldn't find any good places to illegally train his quirk either, and then he found it. It was a place so out of the way it would be impossible to find. It was the perfect place to hide. And what was that noise? Izuku looked where the noise had come from and saw a homeless man in a cardboard fort. Scram kid, this is my alley. Izuku took the man's advice and bolted out of the alley. Izuku stopped running near Dakoba Beach. He hadn't intentionally ran this way, but he was glad. He carefully walked through the mountains of trash while keeping an eye out for homeless people. Luckily, no one had claimed this space, so he would be free to train here. Unfortunately, it was getting late, so he would have to wait until tomorrow. Izuku decided that the first thing he should try to do was summon the electricity he used to escape the sludge villain. He decided that the best way to do this was make electricity sounds and try to charge his phone. He wasn't able to summon any sparks. Izuku sneezed and heard a small pop. He looked at his phone and tried to turn it on. Izuku had apparently overcharged his phone and he would have to get a new one. Izuku moved to a nearby microwave and grabbed the end of the power cord. He once again attempted to summon electricity. The problem was that he had no idea how to do that. Izuku sneezed again and a pop came from the microwave. Why does it only work when I sneeze instead of when I try to use it? Izuku spent most of the day figuring out how to make a spark at will. Of course, he couldn't figure out his quirk quickly. That would just be too easy. Izuku went to school in the morning and did his best to avoid Bakugo. He didn't want to reveal his quirk until he could actually use it, and it might act up again if he was in danger. Izuku was on the beach trying to use whatever was in his scarf. He tried poking the scarf, reaching out with his arms to grab stuff that was too far away. He even tried breaking another one of his cheap All Might figures, but nothing worked, and then some guy tried to mug him on his way home. Izuku was walking past an alley after a day of futile quirk training when someone grabbed him and pulled him into an alley. "Give me your money, kid," the man shouted. Izuku wanted to sass this man so bad, but even he knew that antagonizing a man with a knife was a bad idea. Izuku saw the man's awful footing and realized he could beat this guy in a fight. Izuku tripped the guy and started to reach for the arm holding the knife. He saw the man's other hand's nails grow sharper. Izuku grabbed the hand as it tried to claw at him. Izuku saw the man's other hand coming at him from the corner of his eye. Izuku was about to jump back to avoid being stabbed when one of the snake-like things came out of his scarf and bit down on the knife, shattering it. Izuku hit the man on the head and made sure he was unconscious. Izuku looked at the thing coming out of his permanent scarf. He really needed to figure out what to call them. He'd call them scarf snakes until he actually figured out what they were. Izuku tried to move the scarf snake with his hand. It didn't resist, but it felt weird. Izuku decided to try something that was a very common tactic for getting a grip on power and media, and tried to move it like an extra limb. It moved a little bit. It was progress at least. Izuku continued trying to move his scarf snake around until he heard the mugger grunt and start to move. Izuku realized that this was not the best time or place for quirk training and kicked the guy in the head before running home. After around a month of training, Izuku had half-decent control over his electricity. He was able to summon it at will and had blown up several kitchen appliances. When he summoned the electricity, it surrounded him like it did when the sludge villain attacked him. He was trying to shoot his electricity. He was able to shoot it out a little bit, but it didn't go very far before it dissipated. At least he could blow up toasters from 2 feet away. He had made progress with controlling his scarf snakes, but they often seemed to do whatever they wanted. He had considered a chance that they were sentient, but nothing had come from trying to talk to them. Izuku had a theory that they may act on subconscious thought. This was mostly from that one time he wondered what a toaster tasted like, and the scarf snake took a bite out of one. Speaking of the scarf snake, he could have two of them out at once. He tried to make a third one, but his scarf started to tighten when the third snake started to form, so he dropped trying until he has good control over them. He didn't want to be strangled by his own quirk. After 3 months of training, Izuku had learned to focus his electricity to shoot further. Izuku had started to use his two scarf snakes separately. For one, he did precise movements such as stacking trash as high as he could while at the same time the other one was attacking a refrigerator. He also had enough proof to tell his mom of his quirk. "I'm so happy for you, Izuku," Inko shouted as she crushed him with a hug and attempted to drown him with tears. "Mom, can't breathe." Izuku managed to get out before dying. Inko let go of him. It took a few minutes for his mom to stop flooding the apartment before she asked what his quirk could do. He responded by covering himself with electricity. He let it die down before pulling out his scarf snakes. His mom looked startled at what seemed like two different quirks. She could get it tested when they get to the doctor. Unfortunately for Izuku, his mom knew enough about quirks to realize that it was almost impossible for a quirk to manifest this late without some sort of trigger. "Izuku, how long have you known about your quirk?" his mom asked. "I've known for around 3 months. I wanted to be able to prove it before I told anyone," Izuku said, missing the anger in his mom's eyes. "Izuku, baby," his mom said with the fakest smile possible. What had Izuku done? Was she angry at him for not telling her sooner? He knew she would be upset, but not mad. "You know quirks enough to know the only known way of getting a quirk this late, so tell me." Oh crap, he hadn't thought about how his quirk was stress manifested, and he hadn't even considered that his mom would figure that out. "Why didn't you tell me about an incident so horrible that it forced you to manifest a quirk?" Izuku was about to die. His mom was going to kill him. He needs to think of an excuse. "I was too distracted by getting a quirk," Izuku said, although it sounded more like a question. "You're grounded for a week. You need to tell me these kinds of things, Izuku. How am I supposed to help you if I don't know?" his mom asked. Izuku felt guilty for not telling her immediately. Izuku accepted his grounding without making a fuss. Bakugo got more angry the longer Izuku avoided him. Izuku was lucky that Bakugo was too slow to catch up to him after lunch and after school. Izuku started packing his things before the bell. He noticed Bakugo packing his stuff as well. Izuku had the strap of his backpack in his hand and was prepared to sprint as soon as the bell rang. The bell rang and Izuku bolted out of his classroom. He jumped over one of his classmates' attempts to trip him and was out the door in seconds. Explosions behind him. Izuku put his backpack on while he was running. Izuku heard Bakugo propelling himself with explosions. Izuku made a sharp turn and slid down the banister of the stairs. Izuku found an unlocked window on the first floor and yanked it open. He shut the window just as Bakugo made it down the stairs. Izuku was going to run out of the front gates, but some of the more aggressive students were waiting there for any of the students with weak quirks. Izuku moved to the left when the school wall had more cracks in it, and he scrambled up and over the wall. He immediately started running home. He'd have to find a better escape route next time. It turned out that if angry enough, Bakugo was fully capable of stalking someone. Izuku says this because Bakugo was at a certain beach looking for Izuku. Izuku was about to start quirk training when he heard trash moving around. Izuku quickly turned to where the sound came from and heard a couple of small and very familiar explosions. Izuku used the time he was out of sight to run. He didn't care how much noise he made. He ignored Bakugo's scream of Deku and left the beach. Unfortunately, now that the beach was compromised, Izuku needed to find a new place to train. Something he needed a lot was mobility. He remembered a video of Eraserhead using his scarf to swing on top of a light pole. Shame that the video was taken down. Anyway, he needed to learn how to climb with his scarf snakes. Izuku went to the forest where he and Bakugo used to play. Trees would be great for climbing practice. Izuku's climbing training was going better than expected. Sure, it took him a while to find the proper bite force to grip onto the branches without breaking them or falling off while climbing, but once he got a hang on that, he was climbing medium-sized trees in around 15 seconds. He could just grab the sturdy branches with his snakes, pull himself up, stand on the branch, and repeat it until he got to the top. He decided to see how far he could stretch his snakes out, so he had them bite into a tree and he started to walk away. After around 7 feet, which was way longer than he was expecting, he started to feel his scarf tighten around his neck. He marked the ground and decided to back up until it might be dangerous. He was 9 feet away when he stopped again. Izuku saw that his scarf was visibly smaller than before. Izuku could actually see his neck. There seemed to be several parts of his neck where the scarf was attached. Suddenly, Izuku felt very tired. Izuku's scarf started to grow just to where it didn't feel like it was about to strangle him. And that's how Izuku slept on the forest floor for 3 hours. Izuku woke up super tired and super sore. He was on the ground somewhere. Had Bakugo attacked him from behind? No, he didn't feel any burns. Izuku looked around and saw trees everywhere. Alright, training. Izuku pulled out his phone to check the time and was startled that it was almost dark. Izuku went home as fast as he could, which wasn't very fast considering how tired he was. He got home and started stumbling around the apartment, trying to find the kitchen. Izuku sat down at the table and was thankful that his mom had already made dinner. He ate and went to bed. Izuku woke up tired, way more tired than normal. Maybe that's why he was so mouthy at school. As usual, as soon as Izuku entered the class, Bakugo started screaming at him. Izuku was too tired to deal with it today. Bakugo, if you don't have anything to say except meaningless ramblings to put yourself on an imaginary pedestal, then keep it to yourself. Bakugo got mad, as expected. What did you say, you quirkless DKU? I'm going to kill you. Bakugo screamed like the toddler he was. Bakugo lunged at Izuku. Izuku sidestepped and went to his seat. Bakugo tried to attack him, but the teacher decided to do something useful for once and started class. As soon as lunch came around, Izuku was out the door. He managed to dodge Bakugo during lunch. Unfortunately, Izuku had only gotten more tired throughout the day, so he wasn't able to escape him. Bakugo grabbed Izuku by the scarf and tried to blow it up. Fortunately, it didn't work very well. Izuku decided the best way to avoid a beating was to make Bakugo accept a proper fight. You want to prove you're better than me, right? Then let's take this away from the school. I'm better than you, DKU. We're fighting right now. Bakugo shouted. So you're a coward, huh? Hiding behind the teachers because you know that they won't let me fight back. If you want to beat me in a real fight, we'll take this off school grounds. Unless you're too scared to loose against me. Izuku said, making them fight off campus so that he won't get in trouble. Bakugo couldn't take the blow to his ego that Izuku had just set up for him. Izuku and Bakugo were outside in minutes, far away from the school. Bakugo attacked first, trying to blow Izuku's face up. Izuku dodged and kicked Bakugo in the ribs. Bakugo took a step back and Izuku punched him in the face. Izuku kneed Bakugo and took a few steps back, waiting for Bakugo to recover. Are you done yet? I need to get home. Bakugo didn't take that well. He got up and tried to give Izuku his signature right hook. Izuku avoided the attack and knocked Bakugo to the ground. Izuku put his knee on Bakugo's back and pressed Bakugo's hands to the back of his neck. I win. Izuku said, I'm gonna go home now. If you attack me, I will punch your jaw so hard you will be unable to yell without pain. Izuku got off of Bakugo and moved to leave. Bakugo got up and tried to explode him. Izuku slammed his fist into Bakugo's jaw. Izuku ran, even more tired than before. Time skip. The UA entrance exam was only a few days away. Izuku had gotten his quirk registered a while ago and was able to control his quirk somewhat competently. He hadn't told his school about his quirk because he didn't want the fake acceptance that suddenly getting a quirk would bring. The first time he stretched his snakes out too far, he had been tired for days. But once he had gotten back to training, he noticed that his scarf had grown around half a foot in length. He tried again to see what made the scarf grow and eventually figured out that it used his energy, mainly because he kept getting immediately tired. He bought a few batteries and tried to use them for scarf energy, but it didn't work. However, it did work when he filled a battery with his own electricity, so he just had to use a lot of his energy to grow his scarf. Over the remaining time during the entrance exam, he mostly focused on increasing his snake scarf length, but he did try to shoot his electricity out. Both of his snakes were around 10 feet long. He could shoot his electricity up to 12 feet away, but it didn't have much power at that distance, so he decided to stick with using his hands as tasers for the exam. Izuku only has a few days left for training, so he needs to make the most of it. Izuku was standing in front of UA High, the most prestigious hero school in Japan. It was finally time for the entrance exam he trained so hard for. Izuku stumbled a bit when Bakugo's shoulder checked him, but Bakugo also stumbled because he wasn't expecting any resistance. Stay out of my way, Deku. Bakugo, if I exist, I'm in your way, according to you at least. Bakugo kept walking, but he looked like he wanted to turn around and keep fighting. Izuku took a step forward and tripped over a crack in the concrete. Izuku had his hands out to catch himself, but he suddenly stopped falling. Caught you. A bubbly voice from behind him said it would be bad luck to fall on the day of the exam. Thanks for catching me, Izuku said. Despite his self-confidence being somewhat normal, he hasn't had a positive social interaction with anyone his age since he was diagnosed quirkless, so he had no idea what to say. Well, I'll see you inside, bye, the girl said. This is fine, no awkwardness here. Izuku entered the UA building and made his way to the location of the written portion of the exam. The exam was definitely harder than Aldra's tests, but he would actually be graded fairly here, hopefully, so he was curious how he would do. Izuku somehow got Abraham Lincoln for one of the math problems, but he fixed it quickly. Izuku finished the exam a few minutes early and had to wait, but he felt somewhat confident in his score. Now he just needs to do well on the physical exam. Izuku was sitting in the auditorium waiting for the entrance exam to be explained. Unfortunately for him, Bakugo's seat was right next to him. Izuku did his best to avoid paying attention to him, while Bakugo was whispering insults and threats. The hero known as Present Mike walked on stage. Welcome to the hero course exam, little listeners. Can I get a YEAH? Present Mike shouted. Absolutely no one responded. Tough crowd. Present Mike muttered, for the exam, you will be fighting robots. There will be 3 types of these fake villains: the 1-pointer, the 2-pointer, and the 3-pointer. The silhouette of the robots appeared on screen. Robots are probably one of the best things for my quirk, but it's still unfair. A tall boy with blue hair stood up. On the pamphlet we were handed, it shows 4 villain bots. If this is a mistake on official UA documents, it is shameful. And you? The boy pointed at Bakugo. You have been muttering this whole time. It's very distracting. If you aren't taking this seriously, then leave. What did you say to me, you? Settle down, everyone. Examinee number 1473, great observation. The last robot is an obstacle that rampages in tight spaces. It can be beaten, but it's worth 0 points, so it's best to avoid it. Present Mike announced. Everyone was told their exam site and were moved onto buses. The exam site was a city. A full-size concrete city. How rich was UA? Who gave them this much money? Izuku was standing outside of the open door to the exam site. Go. Present Mike shouted, what are you all doing? There's no countdown in a real fight, so Jiozo. Izuku started running towards the doors with the rest of the examinees. The first thing Izuku did in the city was move off of the main road. Sure, there were a lot of robots on the main road, but there were too many people. Izuku ran through alleys and zapped the few stray 1-pointers he found. Izuku heard something from one of the nearby buildings. Izuku used his scarf snakes to pull himself to a window. Izuku looked inside and saw several 1-pointers and 2-pointers. They all had fancy hats on. There was a 3-pointers on a pedestal that was made to look like a chair. There was a sticker of a cigarette on the face of the 3-point robot. Is this some sort of criminal organization? Izuku quietly climbed through the window. He moved behind the 3-point robot/crime boss and sent a large amount of electricity through it. This turned out to be the wrong move, because as soon as the 3-pointer was destroyed, all of the other robots looked at him and started firing. Izuku prepared his scarf snakes to attack. Izuku rushed and hands charged. His snakes destroyed robots to the sides while Izuku dealt with the ones in front of him. This is the first time Izuku had ever been able to test his quirk in combat, and it was surprising good at group fights. After a few minutes, the robots were defeated and Izuku was running again. He somehow ended up on the main road again when he heard Present Mike over the speakers. There are 2 minutes remaining. The ground started shaking. A massive robot was in the middle of the city, destroying buildings. Izuku started to run away with the other examinees when he heard a yell. Izuku glanced back and saw the brown-haired girl from earlier trapped under some rubble. Izuku quickly turned around and started running towards her. Izuku saw how close the robot was and sped up. Izuku got to the rubble and tried to lift it. It unfortunately didn't move. Izuku's scarf snakes latched onto the concrete and started breaking off chunks and throwing them away. Eventually, they latched onto the concrete and helped Izuku get it off of the girl. Izuku picked her up and started running. The 0-point robot was right behind them. And time's up, Present Mike shouted. Izuku set the girl down and flopped onto the ground. Who thought that having a giant robot was a good idea? Izuku asked no one in particular. The girl chuckled a bit. Izuku heard footsteps coming their way. He sat up and saw a little old lady walking with a cane that looked like a giant syringe. Izuku recognized her as the pro-hero recovery girl. She came over to them, healed them, and gave them some gummies while complaining about how dangerous the exams are. Izuku stood up and started to leave, giving the girl a wave as he left. It was after he was halfway home that he realized he forgot to ask her for her name. All Might was watching the UA entrance exam today. He got a look at the potential UA students and see if any of them would be good successors of One for All. When the exam started, he spotted a head of green hair that he thought looked familiar. It took him a few seconds to recognize the quirkless boy who had asked if he could be a hero. It seems the boy hadn't listened to him. It's a shame to see him fail now. All Might saw the boy defeat a 1-point robot in an alley. It looked like the boy had just placed his hands on it, and it stopped working. All Might kept an eye on the boy to make sure he'd seen that right. The boy defeated another 1-pointer in the same way. Maybe the boy lied, but who would lie about being quirkless to the number 1 hero? Maybe his quirk activation was very specific or it just manifested late. It's not unheard of for a quirk to come in late. All Might stopped watching the boy and watched the performance of the other applicants. None of them particularly caught his eye. There was only a couple of minutes left. With such little time remaining, the 0-pointer was released. It was at this time that All Might saw the boy again. He had rushed to help a girl trapped under the rubble. Maybe this kid could be the one too in Hiri. All Might's train of thought was cut off as 2 things came out of the boy's scarf and helped him remove the rubble. That was a second quirk. The only way for someone to have a second quirk was via receiving One for All or being given it by All for One. But All for One was dead right. He'd killed the monster himself, but a body was never found. That man could be alive, or one of his henchmen had made a clone of the quirk somehow. Whatever the answer was, that boy should not be let into UA. All Might went to Nizu with his concerns, hoping that the principal would heed his warning. Unfortunately, the rat claimed to have already investigated and found no evidence of the quirk being unnatural, but All Might knew better than to believe some fake documents claiming that the boy only had 1 quirk. He clearly had 2, and no amount of deceit would convince him otherwise. Izuku's door was flung open by his mother. "It's here, Izuku, it's here." Izuku calmly grabbed the letter from her hands. No, he did not almost tackle her while trying to grab it. Izuku opened the letter, and a small disc fell out. Izuku poked it a couple times before it turned on. "I am here as a projection." Izuku jumped back a bit at the hologram of All Might. "Why is All Might on my UA letter?" You may be wondering why I am on your UA letter. The answer is that you are looking at the newest member of the UA faculty. You've got to be kidding me. I hope he at least doesn't remember me. It'd be awkward if he did. All Might looked away from the camera for a second. You passed the written test with an outstanding score of 93%, but what you really care about is the practical exam. You gained a total of 38 villain points, which would have barely been enough to enter the hero course if that was the only way to earn points. What does he mean? I got it right. Introducing rescue points. Points given for heroic actions. A video of Izuku saving the brown-haired girl played behind All Might. All Might glanced at the video, and his smile suddenly became strained. Did he just recognize me? For your actions, you have been awarded 32 rescue points, bringing your total up to 70 points. Welcome to your hero academia, All Might said with his fake smile. Izuku grinned and told his mom the good news. She was glad for him and made katsudon for dinner. Despite the happy occasion, Izuku never forgot the fake smile All Might had given him. Izuku was standing in front of the very large door of Class 1A. He knew, logically, that people would treat him better because of his quirk, but a small part of him expected everyone to hate him. Maybe it was best to pretend to be quirkless at first, just to see what kind of people he would be dealing with. No, that would be a bad idea. Maybe I could just ask them what they think of quirkless people, and beat them in a fight if he didn't like the answer. He'd have to find a way to prove he beat them quirkless, maybe a rubber suit or something. Izuku took a deep breath and opened the door. Bakugo and the guy that had reprimanded the angry blonde were arguing. Izuku facepalmed loud enough to get their attention. Bakugo was the first one to speak. What are you doing here, DKU? How could a quirkless loser get into UA? Looks like Izuku got to see what kind of people he was dealing with immediately. Izuku scanned the room to see how people reacted to him being called quirkless. Most of the class just looked confused or surprised. The only person who had a negative reaction was a kid with purple balls on his head. He looked absolutely disgusted. Bakugo, did you forget that I can beat you in a fight? Why wouldn't I be here if someone I can defeat is here? Surprisingly, that got Bakugo to shut up. Izuku looked at the seating chart on the board and sat down behind Bakugo. After a couple of minutes, the brown-haired girl he saved in the entrance exam came in the door. She looked around the room and walked over to Izuku. I recognize that fluffy hair. You're the guy that saved me in the entrance exam. The girl said. That's me. I never ended up getting your name. Oh, right on. If you're here to make friends, you can leave. A voice said. Izuku looked to the front of the classroom and saw a man standing at the teacher's desk. There was something yellow on the floor behind him. None of you even noticed me until I made myself known. You lack spatial awareness. Why is there a homeless guy in UA? Izuku heard from one of his classmates, the one yellow hair and black lightning bolt. My name is Shota Aizawa. I'm your homeroom teacher for the next 3 years. The only people employed at UA are heroes. So who is this guy? I feel like I should know him. We'll be doing a quirk apprehension test. Take your gym uniforms and head out. You have 15 minutes. Izuku walked up and grabbed his gym uniform from the desk and left. He didn't know who his teacher was, but he was most likely an underground hero, and underground heroes don't mess around. Izuku found the changing room and quickly changed into his gym uniform. Some of his classmates tried to talk to him, but he ignored them and went outside. He was standing outside for a few minutes while waiting for his classmates to get out. He was starting to get nervous considering it was just him and Mr. Aizawa outside. Look, Mr. Aizawa's intimidating, all right? It felt like a couple of hours before another classmates came out, but once one did, more started to show up. Eventually, his entire class showed up, with the short, purple, definitely quirkiest kid coming out last. 14 minutes and 37 seconds. You need to do better if you plan on being a hero, Mr. Aizawa said. Bakugo, you got first on the entrance exam. Stand in the circle, use your quirk, and throw the ball as far as you can. Bakugo moves to the circle and catches the ball thrown at him. Bakugo pulled back his arm to throw the ball. Die! The blonde screamed at the top of his lungs. He let out the largest explosion he could and sent the ball flying. Mr. Aizawa stood still for a few seconds before holding up a device. The device had a distance of 705.2 meters. You've all had physical exams in middle school. However, they refuse to let you use your quirks. It's impractical. Right now, we'll be going through the exact same tests, except that this time you can use your quirks. Several cheers went up in his class. They were obviously excited. We get to use our quirks. This will be so much fun, the pink girl shouted. Fun, you say? Mr. Aizawa said. Since you're not taking this seriously, how about we raise the stakes a little bit? The person who comes last will be expelled. You can't do that on the first day. That's so unfair. The girl he saved at the entrance exam said. I need to figure out what her name is. Life isn't fair. Natural disasters, villain attacks. The world is full of unfairness. It's your job as heroes to correct this unfairness, Mr. Aizawa said. I don't remember the test results, and I'm too lazy to look it up, so I'm just putting something that I think sounds close enough. The first test was a 40-meter dash. The first people up were the boy that scolded Bakugo and the girl that looked kind of froggy. The boy had some sort of speed quirk. He finished in about 3.5 seconds while the frog girl finished in 5.6 seconds. Eventually, Izuku and Bakugo had to go. Bakugo used his explosions to propel himself forward. Izuku couldn't think of a way to use his quirk here, so he just ran. Bakugo got a time of 5.4, while Izuku was close behind with a 5.8. The next test was a standing long jump. Izuku actually had an idea of how to use his quirk here. When he was told to start, he bent his knees and prepared to jump. As he started his leap, his scarf snake shot towards the ground and gave him a boost. He managed to land around 3/4 of the way across the sand pit. Bakugo was staring at him. Most of the class was. Bakugo blasted himself towards Izuku. DKU, what the heck was that, huh? Bakugo screamed. Bakugo's explosion stopped, and the boy was caught by something that looked like bandages. Stop making me have to keep using my quirk. I have dry eye. Mr. Aizawa said. Izuku looked at his teacher. The scarf around his neck was floating around him and his eyes are red, but what really caught his attention were the slitted yellow goggles around his neck, the signature goggles of Eraserhead. Izuku was internally freaking out, but did his best to hide it. He somewhat succeeded. Mr. Eraserhead got them to continue their tests. Grip strength was next. Izuku got 72 kilograms, which was decent, but nowhere near the 540 kilograms score of the guy with 6 arms. Izuku got the second highest score in repeat sidesteps, only surpassed by the quirkist kid who used his hairballs to bounce back and forth. The ball throw was next. The only thing he could think of doing was using his scarf snake like some form of sling. It worked surprisingly well. Izuku got 250 meters, though he did feel kind of dizzy after swinging his scarf around. Maybe some of the senses from my scarf snakes transferred to me. Izuku ranked high in the sit-ups and somewhere in the middle of the seated toe touch. He did incredibly in the distance run. He ranked 4th behind the Peppermint Boy, the guy with engines in his legs, and the girl with a motorcycle. When Mr. Aizawa pulled up the rankings, he was glad to see himself in 8th place. He looked for the person in last place, Minoru Mineta. No one seemed to be visibly upset. Mr. Aizawa said that the expulsion was a logical ruse, but he looked very unhappy, very unlike someone who just pulled a prank. On the bright side, Izuku finally got the name of the girl he saved at the exam, Achiko Uraraka. Bakugo approached him and looked angry, so Izuku pulled out his spray bottle of lemon juice and sprayed his face. Izuku went home and got into an online debate about whether water was wet or not. The school day was surprisingly normal. You'd think that a hero school would be at least somewhat different, but the only unique part of the day so far was the teachers, who are all pro-heroes. But now is when things change. Izuku is sitting in class 1A waiting for the practical heroics teacher to show up. He's talking to Uraraka about space. The door slammed open. I am here coming through the door like a normal person, All Might shouted. Izuku's mood soured upon seeing the hero. The opposite happened to almost everyone else. The only other person who didn't look super excited about All Might's presence was the Peppermint Boy, but from what Izuku has seen, the boy doesn't express himself much if at all. I smell trauma. Wait, why can I smell trauma? How do I know what that smells like? While Izuku was having his mental breakdown, All Might had opened the costume rack. Izuku snapped out of it when All Might ran out of the room. Izuku grabbed his costume and left for the locker room. Izuku was pretty sure All Might hadn't threatened them if they came out too slow, so he didn't rush when changing. Izuku put on his costume and pulled his scarf over his mouth and nose. Izuku heard a bit of commotion from the other side of the locker room. The purple guy was saying some creepy and perverted stuff, then put his eye to a hole in the wall. Izuku acted quickly by kicking the pervert across the room. Keep your creepy thoughts to yourself. Izuku said, you tape guy, cover the peephole. I'm taking the creep with me since he's already changed. The purple boy was in fact wearing a plain purple bodysuit with a giant yellow diaper. Izuku was getting second-hand embarrassment just by looking at him. Izuku dragged him out of the locker room. Izuku walked out to find All Might standing alone. All Might immediately noticed Izuku's grip on the great boy and was about to say something, but Izuku spoke first. Can you get someone to fill in the peephole in the locker rooms? It's currently blocked, but it's not a permanent solution. I brought this guy out here so that he doesn't cause any more problems. I will see that it is taken care of. Now would you please let go of young Mineta? Mineta, huh? I'll have to keep an eye on him. Izuku dragged Mineta to the corner and dropped him there. If you get within 15 feet of the girl's locker room, I will not hesitate to report you to Mr. Aizawa. After a few minutes on Mineta sitting in the corner, the rest of the class came out of the locker room. Izuku started looking at his classmates' costumes. The costumes are the same as canon, except for Yaoyorozu and Hagakure. Hagakure has a suit that can turn invisible if the presses a button, and Yaoyorozu has a red bodysuit with extra padding at the joints. She still has the utility belt with a massive book in it, though. The only one that looked really bad was Mineta, while the rest were okay. Uraraka came bouncing over to him. Wow, Midoriya, your costume looks great. Uraraka said. I'm not good with making designs, so I'm just going with Vinok's outfit, but with combat boots. If you don't remember what that looks like, you can go back to Chapter 2 and look at the picture. Thanks. Yours looks good as well. Izuku said. Uraraka blushed a small amount. I wish I was more specific on the design. They ended up making it skin-tight. All Might decided to explain what the exercise would be simulating. Villains had a nuke and were planning on blowing up the city. Heroes had 10 minutes to either capture the villains or disable the bomb by touching it. All Might picked the teams by random selection. There was an objection from the blue-haired boy, but Izuku ignored him. Izuku was paired with the boy with strange elbows. All Might said his name was Zero. The teams were pitted against each other randomly. Izuku's team were the villains, and they were against the red-haired boy who was apparently named Kirishima and the pink girl named Ishido. Izuku and Zero were sent away to get set up in the building. Izuku eventually asked a question. How does your quirk work, Zero? That managed to get him to start talking. My quirk is tape. I can make strong tape from my elbows. I know it doesn't sound like much, but that's great actually. We can use your tape to block stairs and stuff. Actually, that gives me an idea. Izuku was directing Zero on where to place his tape for the best results. Are you sure about this, man? Zero asked. They might figure this out really quickly. From what I've seen, those two are very direct in their approach. They will think that we would only guard the bomb. But we're leaving the bomb undefended. All right, I'll protect the bomb until they pass the first floor. Izuku's plan was simple. Place the bomb out of the way on the first floor and have a very obvious barricade on the stairs. From what Izuku could tell about their two opponents, they didn't seem good with tactics. Izuku dropped down to the first floor by using his scarf snakes to help him down the fire escape. Izuku hid in a room right next to the entrance and waited for his classmates. When they entered, he made sure they went upstairs before climbing back to Zero. This is where things get interesting. And start. All Might shouted. Ishido and Kirishima burst through the door. They had both agreed that the bomb would be on a higher floor, and the tape blocking the stairs only proved that suspicion. Kirishima hardened his arms and started cutting through the tape. It seemed that the villain team only put effort into blocking the stairs. Around 4 minutes later, Kirishima and Ishido broke onto the fourth floor, only for tape to come flying at them. The tape grabbed onto Kirishima's arm and yanked him forward directly into a kick to his side. Kirishima hardened his arm and cut the tape. Sneak attacks aren't manly at all, Kirishima shouted. Ishido tried to use her acid on Zero, but Midoriya pulled him out of the way. The villain team and hero team stood back and looked at each other. Ishido saw a few hallways that had been taped off. Zero was surprisingly the first one to engage, pulling Kirishima towards him. Midoriya went after Ishido, successfully separating her and Kirishima. Ishido was throwing acid everywhere while avoiding Midoriya's attacks. Midoriya avoided the acid, often using his snakes to bounce over the substance. Kirishima was cutting through Zero's tape and was able to land a good punch on him. Ishido was standing in some of her acid. Midoriya put his hands on the ground, one of his fingers touching the acid. Ishido froze up, then some of her muscles started twitching. Midoriya used his scarf to knock her over. Midoriya moved to help Zero, only to see Kirishima capturing him. Ishido and Kirishima were now trying to catch him, but there was an open window. Midoriya sat on the windowsill. Good luck trying to find the bomb, heroes, Midoriya said with a fake sneer before falling out of the window. His scarf snakes latched onto the fire escape, and he made his way down the building. Ishido and Kirishima started tearing through the tape and searching for the bomb. They never found it. All Might announced that the villains had won, though he sounded rather upset. Now class, All Might shouted, who do you think is the MVP of this round? The girl with a large spiky ponytail started talking. The MVP is Midoriya, sir. He came up with the plan and used his allies' quirk well to deceive their enemy. He even considered his allies' concerns and made an effort to dissuade them. Good observation. However, the MVP is young Zero, as the entire plan depended on him. All Might shouted. All Might moved on to the next match. Izuku started to learn his classmates' names through the announcements. Izuku was almost at the school building. He wasn't late at all, but he figured he could speed up. Izuku approached UA, only to see the doors swarming with people. UA's gate was swarming with reporters, and they were blocking students from entering. Izuku tried slipping in between reporters, but tripped on one of them. They noticed and swarmed him. Izuku was only saved from death by Ida saying he would talk about All Might as a teacher. The reporters left Izuku and swarmed Ida instead. Izuku used the time Ida had given him to get up and run inside. The class was about half full when Izuku arrived. His classmates must have been stalled by the media. It took several minutes for the rest of the class to arrive. Several of Izuku's classmates were murmuring about the vultures. Mr. Aizawa entered the classroom. It's time for you all to make a decision that will affect the rest of your careers. Izuku, as well as the rest of his class, was nervous. You'll be selecting your class representative. Most of the class shouted something along the lines of "that's a completely normal school activity" before nominating themselves for the position. Aizawa told them to get on with it before hiding in his cocoon. Ida suggested a vote, and it was quickly accepted. Izuku didn't know any of his classmates too well, but he felt like someone level-headed would be a good class representative, so he voted for Azui. The results came out, and Yaoyorozu had gotten first with 4 votes, and Azui had gotten 3. Aizawa left his sleeping bag. Yaoyorozu is your class representative, and Azui is your vice representative. Now sit back down, your first class is about to begin. Izuku opened his lunchbox and started at the lunch he packed last night. A raw potato and a singular French fried. What the heck is this? Why is this my lunch? Izuku continues staring until he was interrupted by someone. Midoriya, that is not a proper lunch for someone in the hero course. Take some of my chicken. Ida said while trying to karate chop some imaginary opponent. You don't need to. Is that a rotisserie chicken? Yes, my mother always makes me pack extra food in case someone is hungry. But that's a whole chicken. Do not worry, I have my own. I normally have to throw the extra chicken away. Ida pulled out a second rotisserie chicken. Izuku was now scared of Ida. Uraraka, who had sat next to Izuku at some point, was staring at Ida in horror. Ida, are you a rich kid? Uraraka asked. Ida looked embarrassed. I thought I was hiding it better. Uraraka went to ask another question when alarm bells started ringing across the school. There was a couple seconds of calm before people started panicking. Izuku didn't stand up. He was not getting into that stampede. Uraraka grabbed him by the arm and accidentally used her quirk on him, dragging him into the panic as if he weighed nothing, probably because he didn't weigh anything anymore. At one point, Uraraka got jostled enough to accidentally let go of him. Izuku drifted up to the ceiling. Izuku saw the ventilation above him and used his scarf to latch onto it and move him on top in case Uraraka released her quirk while he was up here. Ida went flying past him and crashed into the wall above the exit. Everybody calm down. This is UA. We have made it into this institution, so we must act like it. Now if you look outside, it's just the press that got in. Ida shouted. The crowd quieted down and looked outside. Ida was correct. The vultures had entered the school. Hey Ida, do you need help down? Izuku asked. Ida looked up at him surprised. How did you end up on top of the vents? Uraraka accidentally used her quirk on me, and I decided that up here was safer than the stampede. So do you want help down? Your help would be greatly appreciated, Midoriya. Izuku pushed himself towards the ground and latched on to Ida to bring him down as well. Once they were safely on the ground, Izuku felt his weight return to him. Apparently, there was a field trip planned for today. Class 1A was currently in a bus headed to UA's rescue training facility. Hey Midoriya, I usually saw what's on my mind, Karo. Azui said, do you have 2 different quirks? Several students started paying attention to their conversation, Todoroki in particular. No, I only have 1 quirk. What's the connection to the snake scarf and the electricity from the battle trial? I have no clue. You're so lucky that you're able to control your electricity so well. Kaminari said I've been trying forever, but I just can't direct it. Why don't you just become a taser? Izuku asked. That's rude, man. Kaminari said sadly. What do you mean? That's what I did when I got my quirk. Huh. Just charge up your electricity and don't release it. It will supercharge your body and let you electrocute people by touching them. Why didn't I think of that? That's because you're an idiot, Jiro said. Everyone stop talking, we're almost there, Mr. Aizawa said. Mr. Aizawa was correct. They were approaching a large dome-shaped building. The class filed out of the bus and entered the building. Welcome to the USJ, a very excited voice shouted. Oh my gosh, it's the Pro Hero 13. She's my favorite hero. She is an image of what all rescue heroes should be. Uraraka muttered. Is that what I used to sound like? Izuku thought. Mr. Aizawa walked to 13 while the students were having their own conversations. Izuku noticed and listened in. "Where's All Might?" Aizawa asked 13. "He got caught up in something on the way here. He's planning on making an appearance near the end," 13 said before holding up 3 fingers. 3. That has to have something to do with All Might. 3 brain cells? Or it might have something to do with his weakened form, a time limit. Maybe he ran out of time. That man is the height of irrationally. 13 came up to the students and started giving a lecture how quirks are dangerous and can easily kill, but should be used to help people. Then the lights flickered. Aizawa was on guard, so Izuku was wary. Black fog came into existence in front of the fountain. A hand came out of the fog and somehow grabbed the edge of a gaseous substance and pulled itself through. The man that stepped through had pale blue hair and a strange mask covering his face. It looked kind of like a hand, but that was probably because of the distance. "Is this like the entrance exam, where the test has already begun?" Kirishima asked. "No," Mr. Aizawa said, "those are real villains. 13 protect the students." Mr. Aizawa jumped into the horde of other villains that had come out of the mist. 13 started ushering the students out. "I'm afraid I cannot let you do that." The fog appeared in front of the door. "I am Kurojairi of the League of Villains. We have introduced into this bastion of heroism to end the symbol of peace." "Like we'd let you." Bakugo shouted before exploding towards the villain with Kirishima hot on his heels. "No, stay back." 13 shouted as she turned off her quirk that had just activated. Kurojairi moved to the side. Bakugo as well as Kirishima disappeared. "TCH, you lot really are the golden eggs of the next generation. Disappear." The fog started spreading. Izuku suddenly fell through the fog. He was falling, and then, splash, he hit the water. It took Izuku a couple of seconds to realize he was underwater and another couple of seconds for him to realize he can't breathe underwater. Izuku started swimming up, but a shark villain started chasing him. "It's nothing personal, kid," the man said. How could Izuku hear him underwater? Izuku did the first thing that came to mind and launched a scarf snake at the man and bit down on his nose. Azui came out of nowhere and kicked the man away. Izuku was very glad that he had only bitten the tip of the man's nose because apparently his scarf snake's bite force was strong enough not to release when Azui kicked the man, causing a small part of his nose to be ripped off. Azui grabbed him and pulled him onto the boat. "Excuse me while I go throw up," Izuku said before vomiting off the side of the boat. Izuku turned back to Azui. She was just staring at Mineta while he blubbered about how screwed they were. Izuku decided to knock some sense into him. "Ow, what the heck, man, are you trying to kill me?" Mineta said. "Shut up, Azui, I just thought of a plan." Azui and Izuku took a few steps away from Mineta. Suddenly a blast of water hit the boat and almost cut it in two. Mineta started freaking out more. Izuku quickly told Azui the plan. "All right, here's the plan. I want you to hold Mineta over the edge of the boat like you're going to sacrifice him to the villains. While they're distracted with that, I will get in the water on the other side of the boat and electrify the water. Call me Tsukero. Is sacrificing Mineta really necessary? Call it a threat for if he ever tries something perverted again. Reasonable enough. Kero." Sue walked to Mineta and picked him up. "I offer this diaper grape as a sacrifice for our lives," Sue shouted in her usual blank tone. What? What are you doing? Let me go now." Izuku slinked to the other side of the boat. He clung to the railing with his scarf snakes and lowered himself into the water. He barely had enough scarf to dip his feet in, but it was enough. Izuku charged his body and waited. He could hear several shouts on the other side of the boat and several screams. Izuku did his best to keep the electricity going, but hearing those sounds was enough to make him want to stop. But he kept going. "We're good, Kero," Tsu called over the edge. Izuku sighed in relief and pulled himself back up. Mineta was rocking back and forth on the ground, muttering to himself. Did that really traumatize him that much? He made a perverted comment, so I dropped him before catching him with my tongue, Kero. Understandable. Have a nice day. Anyway, we should get to shore. Mr. Aizawa might need some help. Are you sure that's a good idea, Kero? He's a pro hero. He can handle himself. We can just pick off some of the guys on the side if he needs help. Plus, it's better to make sure he's okay. Sue grabbed Mineta and jumped close to the shore. Izuku jumped off of the sinking boat and used his scarf snakes to push off the boat. He landed a few feet behind Tsu. He swam up to the edge of the lake zone to check how Mr. Aizawa was doing. Izuku arrived just in time to see Mr. Aizawa's face get slammed into the ground by a giant figure with a beak. Izuku was unable to move. He stood there petrified along with Tsu and Mineta. The mist villain appeared next to the guy that was wearing hands. "Please let those be fake, please." Tamura Shigaraki, one of the students, escaped. "The pros will be here soon," Kurojiri said. "If you weren't out Warp Gate, I would kill you right now. Let's go. The final boss isn't here. It'd be a waste of items to keep fighting." "We're saved," Mineta Whisper shouted as he hugged Tsu. He must have done something bad because Tsu decided that drowning him was a suitable punishment. But first Shigaraki started. Izuku felt a pit form in his stomach. "Let's destroy the pride of the symbol of peace." Shigaraki was in front of Tsu in an instant, hands stretched out towards her face. Izuku hadn't seen his quirk, but judging from the look on Tsu's face, it was deadly. Shigaraki's hand landed on Tsu's face, but nothing happened. Shigaraki removed his hand from Tsu's face. "You really are cool, Eraserhead." Shigaraki turned his head to Mr. Aizawa. He had his head up and was glaring at Shigaraki with his quirk. Izuku took the chance given to him. "Nomu," Shigaraki said. The creature slammed Mr. Aizawa's face to the ground again. Shigaraki jumped back to avoid the bolt of electricity that went past him. Izuku jumped at him, a scarf snake reaching to grab his wrist so he couldn't use his quirk. The thing that had bashed Mr. Aizawa got in his way. Izuku's scarf snake latched onto the creature's arm, and Izuku used the other scarf snake to flip over Nomu. Izuku had a gasp from someone behind him as well as a ripping noise. He saw Shigaraki looking at him with rage. Izuku pulled the snake holding Nomu over his head. Nomu was a lot lighter than he thought. Nomu's arm hit Shigaraki, but no other part of Nomu was in sight. Izuku turned around to see Nomu with only one arm. Then its flesh started bubbling, and a new arm replaced the old one. A crash echoed from the front of the USJ. "Have no fear, because I am here," All Might shouted. All Might was not smiling. All Might had had a bad feeling since the bus for the USJ had left. He had ignored it at first. It probably had to do with the lecture Nizu was going to give him about not being able to fulfill his teaching duties, but the feeling kept growing. Eventually, he managed to escape Nizu and ran towards the USJ only to be met by young Ida. Ida told him about the attack on the USJ. All Might thought it was unheroic to leave his allies behind, but he had more important things to attend to, such as smashing the door to the USJ. "Have no fear, because I am here," All Might shouted. All Might took a look around the USJ. He saw several villains around. But what really caught his attention was two villains as well as the obvious villain in Class 1A, Midoriya, facing young Azui and young Mineta. All Might quickly scooped up the two and carried them far away while knocking out any villains on the way. He charged at the villain with hands all over his body, but was blocked by the hulking figure of the second villain. "Meet the anti-symbol of peace, the bioengineered Nomu. It's time for the symbol of peace to fall," the handman said. "Be careful. Noma has a regeneration quirk." The traitor shouted. His advice obviously meant to get him killed. All Might started throwing punches at Nomu, but it tanked them and sent several punches at him. "This thing is strong. If punches aren't working, then I'll have to try something else." All Might got behind Nomu and suplexed it into the ground. A portal opened below Nomu. Nomu came through the portal and grabbed his sides, its claws piercing his weak point. When All Might started fighting Nomu, Izuku had snuck off to Mr. Aizawa while Shigaraki was distracted. He did his best to get the man on his back before he started walking to the entrance. Tsu and Mineta met up with him to help him carry the injured man. They were leaving the plaza when All Might suplexed Nomu. "How did he make a suplex look like an explosion?" Mineta asked. "Probably the sheer force he put behind it," Izuku said. The trio continued onwards, occasionally glancing back at the dust. Izuku was the first one to see the danger All Might was in. "I need to help him, but how will I?" Izuku thought of how he had removed Nomu's arm. "I can't do that again. I can't just rip off someone's arm. Why am I even considering this?" Izuku saw All Might struggling to break free of Nomu's grip. He was unsuccessful. "Screw it. I'll deal with the mental consequences later." "Tsu, take Mr. Aizawa." Tsu took Mr. Aizawa off Izuku's back. Before Tsu or Mineta said anything, he was running towards Nomo. Izuku was close enough to attack Nomo. The left half of Nomo's body was frozen. Izuku skidded to a stop as All Might used the opening the ice gave him to free himself. Nice shot, Todoroki, Izuku shouted. Kirishima attacked Shigaraki while Bakugo knocked Kirojiri down and held him in by the metal collar. Izuku just noticed. Kirishima tried to punch Shigaraki, but Izuku pulled him away from Shigaraki's outstretched hand. Be careful, I don't know his quirk, but it's 5-point contact and definitely dangerous. Noma broke out of the ice by ripping its frozen arm off. Izuku once again almost threw up as the arm regrew. Something like that doesn't get easier to see after the first time. Nomu, free our warp gate, Shigaraki said. Noma vanished. Bakugo appeared beside Kirishima. There was a dust cloud where Nomu was standing, fist outstretched in a punch. The dust cleared to reveal All Might standing with his arms blocking his chest. All Might glared at Nomu. You can't beat Nomu. He was specifically made to beat you at 100%. His shock absorption prevents you from doing any damage, Shigaraki said. I thought this thing had a regeneration quirk? All Might asked. I never said he only had one quirk. Noma's using cheats. All Might's smile faltered for a second. That's not possible, right? It's impossible for someone to have multiple quirks, right? Izuku thought. If it's shock absorption and not shock nullification, then there must be a limit, All Might declared. All Might and Nomu started clashing again, blowing everyone away. The students and villains were captivated. Izuku was the first to snap out of it because of his lack of All Might fanaticism. Izuku poked Kirishima's shoulder. We need to leave. The villains could snap out of it at any time and attack us. You get Bakugo, I'll get Todoroki. But it would be unmanly to leave the fight, Kirishima said. It would also be unmanly for us to die because we didn't escape when we had the chance. If you feel bad about it, I'll have Todoroki keep an eye on things. His range is enough to attack and retreat. That makes sense. I don't like it though. Kirishima went to get started whispering to Bakugo. Izuku tapped on Todoroki's shoulder. We're moving out. Those villains could stop gawking at the fight any moment. Keep an eye out to see if you might need to interfere. Todoroki quietly nodded. Kirishima managed to get Bakugo to follow him. Izuku and Todoroki were behind them as they were walking towards the entrance. Go beyond, plus ultra, All Might yelled. The deafening boom of Nomu being punched through the USJ echoed around the area. All Might was standing in a dust cloud, though it looked like steam was coming off of him. The buff man was staring down Shigaraki and Kirojiri. All Might was trying to intimidate them into leaving, however that didn't work. Shigaraki charged at All Mighty with all 5 fingers ready to make contact with him. Todoroki now. Izuku shouted urgency in his voice. Todoroki sent ice toward Shigaraki and stuck him to the floor. Shigaraki reached his hand down to the ice and disintegrated it. Hey Midoriya, did I ever thank you for pulling me away from that guy? Kirishima asked. The ice hadn't delayed Shigaraki long, but it was enough for the UA staff to arrive. Pro Hero Snipe shot Shigaraki's hand as Kirojiri warped him away. The teachers fanned out to find any students. Kirishima tried to check on All Might, but Cementos blocked him with a large wall. He must have deflated. Izuku got to the entrance and saw Mr. Aizawa and 13 being loaded into ambulances. Izuku was suddenly very tired. His adrenaline had probably run out. Izuku joined the group of students outside. He caught Suzai. She glanced at him and then hurriedly looked away. Izuku remembered that he had ripped off Noma's arm in front of her and Mineta. Izuku moved to a trash can by the entrance and threw up. He was going to be losing a lot of sleep over this. Tashinori was in the nurse's office alone. Recovery Girl had done what she could, but that fight had taken a lot out of him. Who knows how much time he had left as the symbol of peace. One good thing had come out of the USJ incident, though. Tashinori had found someone worthy of one for all. UA had closed for 2 days after the USJ incident, as it was now being called. Izuku hadn't been able to sleep well since. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about how he ripped Nomu's arm off. The sight of the bloody arm still haunts him. Then there was the shark guy who had the tip of his nose removed by Izuku and Tsu. Izuku trudged to UA. UA had finally finished whatever modifications they were making to prevent another USJ incident. Izuku sat at his desk. A few of his classmates were wondering who the substitute teacher would, since there was no way that Mr. Aizawa could teach considering how injured he was. Izuku agreed with them. Uraraka, Ida, and Tsu approached him. "Are you all right, Midori?" Uraraka asked. "You do not seem to have been getting enough sleep," Ida said with arm-choppy movements. "You look sleep-deprived," Tsu said. "I'm fine. I just haven't been able to sleep well since the USJ." "Wait, since when did you call me Midori?" Izuku asked Uraraka. Uraraka felt a bit embarrassed about being called out. "You don't need to feel guilty about no Makaro. That thing had even All Might struggling," Tsu said, realizing what was likely on his mind. "Thanks, Tsu." A mummy entered the classroom. It was actually Mr. Aizawa, but close enough. "Mr. Aizawa, you should be resting. Teaching in your condition is not good for your health," Ida said. "My condition is not important. What is important is that the fight is not over yet," Mr. Aizawa said. The class became worried at that statement, wondering if there was another villain attack. "The UA Sports Festival is coming up." "That's a completely normal school activity," almost the entire class shouted. "You only have 2 weeks to prepare, so train as hard as you possibly can." "Are you sure it's a good idea to hold the sports festival right after a villain attack?" Tsu asked. "The sports festival has become an event that even outshines the Olympics. It can't just be stopped for something as small as a villain attack, or at least that's what the school board says. Plus, the sports festival is a good way to get your name out there as a hero. After the sports festival, you will be sent internship offers from pro-hero agencies. These internships will teach you valuable skills as well as introduce you to the public. There is only one sports festival a year, so you will only have 3 chances. Don't waste them." The announcement made class get fired up. Uraraka was the one most affected considering the terrifying determination radiating off of her. She proclaimed that she was going to do her best. The bell rang and class started. Ejiro Kirishima had thought that his day would be normal. Sure, the UA Sports Festival had been announced, but that just made him more pumped up for practical heroics later in the day. He was not, however, expecting All Might to ask to eat lunch with him. Ejiro was brought into a private room with the number 1 hero, and then he deflated. The hero calmed the panicking Ejiro down and explained his injury. Then All Might said something that would change his life forever. "Young Kirishima, I want you to inherit my power." One for all, the combined power of 8 generations was just offered to him. The guy with the unflashy and uncool hardening quirk. The power that comes with potential injury to himself. That was all very interesting and all, but there was something that stood out to him even more. Izuku Midoriya was most likely working for the villains that had attacked the USJ. All Might had tried to get the principal to see reason, but the principal wouldn't kick the traitor out. What would the manly thing to do be in this situation? The final bell rang. Uraraka was the first to try to leave. The door opened to reveal a crowd of people blocking the exit. Hi? Why is there so many people outside our door?" Zero asked. "Isn't it obvious?" Bakugo said, "We survived a villain attack. Of course they'd come to check out the competition, bunch of extras." "Bakugo, you cannot call people extras because you do not know them," Ida exclaimed. "Shut up, Four Eyes. It's not like they matter anyway. What are a bunch of rejects gonna?" Bakugo was cut off by Izuku grabbing him by the ear and yanking him back into the classroom. Bakugo tried to scream at Izuku, but he tossed him. "Sorry about the Pomeranian. Our old school inflated his ego to the size of Might Tower, and he's still adjusting to people not treating him like a king. I swear we're not all like him," Izuku said. A purple-haired boy approached the front of the crowd. "I guess not all of Class A is horrible, but just remember, there are many people in Gen Ed who failed the hero exam due to unsuitable quirks. However, if we do well enough in the sports festival, we can be transferred to the hero course, and you can be transferred out. Consider this a declaration of war." "Neat," Izuku said. "If you could replace Mineta, that would be awesome." "Hey, what was that for?" Mineta shouted. "Silence, pervert," Mina shouted. "Can I get through? My mom gets worried if I get home too late," Izuku asked. Some of the crowd was nice enough to let him through. Some smug blonde tried to stop him, but Izuku dodged him. It only took a few minutes for Izuku to be out of the school and on his way home. Izuku passed a convenience store a few blocks away from his home. He was wondering if he should grab a snack. Something bumped into his leg. He looked to his left and saw an entrance to an alley and a little girl with red eyes and pale blue hair holding on to him. She was wearing a hospital gown and her arms were covered in bandages. Izuku crouched down to her level. "Hey there, are you all right? Please, don't let him take me." Izuku's brain stopped functioning properly. What should I do? What should I do? Izuku remembered the police station a couple blocks in the direction he had come from, but his non-functioning brain dismissed it. Mom will know what to do. What's your name? He asked quietly. Eri. All right, Eri, follow me. I know someone who can help. Izuku offered his hand to the child, and she grabbed it. Izuku quickly continued walking with Eri in tow. Despite his brain not working properly, he made a good decision. He turned into the alley 2 buildings down. A couple seconds after he disappeared into the alley, a man with a bird mask came from the same alley Eri appeared from. He turned the opposite direction that the two had gone and continued his search for Eri. Izuku opened his front door. Mom, are you home? Izuku called. Yes, honey, how was, oh my? Izuku's mom poked her head out of her room and noticed Eri. Izuku, sweetie, who is this? This is Eri. She needed help. Inko saw the bandages on Eri's arms and quickly approached. Eri flinched back and Inko slowed down. Eri, this is my mom. You can trust her. Eri looked at Izuku's mom with wide eyes. Inko slowly approached and knelt down to be eye level with Eri. Hello, Eri. My name is Inko Midoriya. I'm the mother of Izuku here. Izuku's mom gently held her hand out to Eri. Eri didn't grab her hand at first, but after a few seconds of Inko not moving, Eri slowly reached her hand out. Eri put her hand in Inko's. Inko smiled at Eri, then looked up at Izuku. Where did you find Eri? She bumped into me when running out of an alley. It seemed like she was running from someone. Why didn't you take her to the police? Izuku got embarrassed at this. I wasn't thinking anything. Of course, it makes sense, I guess. Anyway, we need to take her to the police. But what if they? They won't. Eri will be staying with us now. We just need to report this so whoever was following her can't claim we kidnapped her. Eri seemed scared and clung to Izuku tighter. Don't worry, Eri. We're going to go talk to someone so that you can stay with us. Inko said, but first let's get you changed into proper clothes, Eri. Inko reached out to Eri. Eri looked at Izuku, who nodded at her. She grabbed Inko's hand and let go of Izuku. Do we even have anything that will fit Eri? Izuku asked. Yes, we do. Inko took Eri to her room to get changed. Eri came out wearing one of Izuku's old All Might onesies. Mom. What? You used to love it so much that I got a spare in case you lost it. Don't worry though. I'm taking her shopping after we go to the police station. Inko brought the two children into the car and called someone on her phone. Sakachi, get the paperwork ready. I'm adopting a child. Izuku wasn't sure what he was expecting when his mom had called someone on their way to the police station, but he wasn't expecting to be met at the door by an officer who immediately brought them into the office of a plain-looking man with a tan hat and trench coat. You do know that I'm not the right person to call when you're adopting a child, right? The man said. He then looked at Izuku. Eri was hiding behind Izuku, so she wasn't visible to the man. Is this the kid you're adopting? No, I did that a while ago. Inko replied. Wait, what? I'm not adopted. Izuku stated. Oh, did I never tell you? Izuku's mom looked at him with an evil grin. Where did this come from? She's never acted like this before. The person I'm adopting is the little girl behind him. Eri poked her head out from behind Izuku, then hid behind him again. Mrs. Midoriya, you know better than to call me for an adoption, especially since the police aren't the right people for that. What's going on? Izuku's mom got serious. What the heck? Since when could she get serious that fast? Izuku, I'd like you to tell Detective Tsukachi how you found Eri. Inko said in a way that had no room for argument. Not that he would anyway. I was walking home when Eri bumped into me. She was terrified and needed help, so I brought her home. You're going to have to be more specific, Tsukachi said. The first words she said to me were, please don't let him take me, so decided to not let whoever was following her take her. All right, we're going to have to ask Eri a few questions. Izuku and his mom glared at Tsukachi. The detective raised his hands in peace. Nothing specific yet. We just need to make sure we can legally remove her from her guardian and place her in your care. I'm watching you, Tsukauchi, Inko said with narrowed eyes. You'll obviously be in the room. You can stop me if there is a question you don't like. Izuku, stay in the lobby while Eri and I talk to Detective Tsukauchi. But Izuku. Izuku went to the lobby and sat down. After about an hour, Izuku's mom and Eri walked into the lobby. Eri ran over to him and grabbed his arm. How are you doing, Eri? Izuku asked. Mrs. Inko said I get to stay with you. Eri seemed happy, but she wasn't smiling. Izuku decided not to pry. Izuku's mom ushered the two into the car and drove to the mall. Izuku followed his mom and Eri into a clothing store. His mom started grabbing clothes for Eri. His mom told him to grab a shirt for Eri. She definitely was testing him to see if he should be trusted to pick out clothes. Unfortunately, Izuku destroyed that trust when he came back with a t-shirt with the word hoodie on the front of it. Izuku's mom tried to make him put it back, but Eri wouldn't let her because Izuku picked it out. Eventually, Eri had all the clothes she needed and they left the store. Since it was pretty late, they got takeout for dinner. Eri seemed to be glowing at the taste of the food. Izuku's mom took Eri to bed. Eri got Izuku's bed, and he got the couch until his mom turned his dad's old office into a bedroom, which might be a while considering that room had been untouched since his dad went to get milk. Izuku lay down on the couch, regretting that he had to go to school tomorrow instead of staying with Eri. The next few days were mostly boring, the same boring schedule. Wake up, go to school, train on the beach, play with Eri, go to bed, repeat. His range with his electricity had only increased a little bit, but progress was slow. He had been training his physical strength as well. Izuku wanted to be an underground hero, but he wanted to secure his spot in the hero course. Making it to the third round should be enough to do that. He'd lose his first one-on-one fight to exit the tournament without much attention, unless by some horrible stroke of luck Mineta made it to the third round. Then he'd take the chances to punt him into the stands. It was finally time for the UA Sports Festival. Izuku and his class was in the locker room. Todoroki approached Bakugo. Objectively speaking, I'm stronger than you, Todoroki said. That's not going to go over well. Huh? What did you say, you extra? I'm the strongest, Bakugo shouted while letting off a few explosions. Todoroki looked unimpressed. Incorrect, but the point is that you're the only person here who could give me a challenge. I'm going to beat you. What do you say? I am going to kill you out there. Todoroki is acting like a jerk. Normal, he's a lot quieter than this. Woe declaring war on a fellow classmate. Kirishima asked. The boy had been acting weird recently. We're not here to make friends. We're here to be heroes. You don't seem enthusiastic about that. An announcement came over the intercom for Class 1A to come out to the stadium. The class started leaving the locker room. The class as a whole was walking down the massive hallway. They heard Present Mike announcing. And first on the field we have the famous class that survived a villain attack mostly unharmed. It's Class 1A, Present Mike announced. Izuku stepped into the sunlight. And first on the field we have the famous class that survived a villain attack mostly unharmed. It's Class 1A, Present Mike announced. Izuku stepped into the sunlight. Class 1A was met with loud cheering. The crowds were truly excited to see the famous Class 1A. Most of the class glowed in the attention, but a few, like Tokoyami and Koda, seemed very uncomfortable with the attention. Next up, these students haven't had a chance to shine, but don't count them out. It's Class 1B. The mentioned class came out of their tunnel. And we have the support course students. What will these crazy inventors bring to the festival? And last but not least, we have the Gen Ed classes. Your lack of enthusiasm indicates that Gen Ed is in fact least. For our referee, we have the R-rated heroine Midnight. Who allowed her to teach kids? Izuku asked. He managed to hear others wondering the same thing. Mineta was looking a bit too happy, so Izuku accidentally kneed his back. Midnight called the first-place winner of the entrance exam up to give the athlete's oath. Bakugo walked up to the stage. Izuku leaned to the person next to him, who happened to be Kirishima. I bet $10 he insults every participant in the first 10 words. What? Baku bro would never. $10 he won't. Bakugo grabbed the mic. I'm gonna win, you bunch of extras. Kirishima sadly handed over his $10. Bakugo got off the stage despite the people booing him. After that rousing speech, it's time for the first event. Present Mike shouted. A giant wheel appeared on the screen behind Midnight. The wheel spun and landed on Obstacle Race. The Obstacle Race, Midnight said through the speakers. In this challenge, all of the students will go through a large track with 3 major obstacles. The first 42 to finish will advance to the next round. The students were guided to a tunnel at the beginning of the track. And begin, Present Mike shouted. Students started rushing towards the tunnel. Izuku was getting shoved around in the tunnel, so he jumped onto someone's shoulders and pushed off of them. Izuku was in the air when the ground froze. Izuku noticed that the purple boy that should replace Mineta was being held up by some members of Class 1C. Several of Izuku's classmates and some of Class 1B had passed through the tunnel despite Todoroki's attempts to freeze everyone in place. Izuku was out just in time to see a glorious sight. Mineta got punched in the face by a 3-point robot from the entrance exam. Izuku kept running, dodging robots. Izuku saw that Bakugo was about to pass Todoroki. Izuku, of course, decided to hinder Bakugo. Izuku passed Mineta and picked him up with his scarf snake and flung him at Bakugo's head. Izuku's human bullet hit its mark and Bakugo fell down. What happened there? Present Mike shouted. Mineta has somehow landed on Bakugo. Shoulda, how did that happen? Why would I tell you? Mr. Aizawa said with a small amount of smugness. Izuku was glad that no one pointed him out to the audience. He was also glad he got to see Mineta get thrown back at the people behind Bakugo. Just then Todoroki froze 2 0-pointers that Izuku hadn't noticed somehow. Todoroki passed between them. The ice broken and the 0-pointers fell on 2 students, killing them instantly. Oh wait, that was Kirishima, killing one instantly. Apparently Kirishima had a clone that spray painted himself because neither of them died, and they both dug their way out of the 0-pointer. Izuku climbed over the 0-pointer along with a few other contestants. After a bit more running, Izuku arrived at what was called the fall. A giant hole in the ground with some platforms to stand on and metal tightropes connecting them. Izuku slowly shimmied his way across. He saw a pink-haired girl go swinging by with a grappling hook bag, laughing like a maniac. It took Izuku forever to fully cross. He got to the end in time to see Mineta stick himself to Yaoyorozu's back. Hey Yaoyorozu, you've got something on your back. Let me get it off. Izuku grabbed Mineta and tossed him over his shoulder and into the pit. Izuku saw the large amount of people who had an easy time with the fall moving on to the next obstacle. Izuku saw someone get blasted into the air by pink smoke. It's a minefield. At least it's obvious where the mines are, but there's only 20 people there. I'm going to have to slow my progress down to keep out of the spotlight, but I did throw Mineta into the pit. Hopefully no one saw that. Izuku made his way through the minefield at an average pace. A couple people passed him, but it wasn't enough for him to be worried about making it through to the next round. Present Mike announced Todoroki as the winner and Bakugo a close second. He is not going to like that, Izuku thought. Nothing major happened after that. Izuku passed in 23rd place. Bakugo was yelling at Todoroki for succeeding. Kirishima and his twin were glaring at each other. Aoyama was trying to absorb the crowd's attention despite coming in 42nd place. All right, everyone. Are you ready for the second event of the UA Sports Festival? Present Mike shouted. The second event of the UA Sports Festival is a cavalry battle. Midnight explained the event to the crowd, because I'm too lazy to. Izuku was approached by the purple-haired boy that should replace Mineta. Do you want to join my team? Izuku thought about it for a couple seconds. Sure, I want you to Repla. Izuku's words were cut off. Izuku's mind went blank. He was shocked out of his blank state of mind by a pain in the arm. He looked at his arm to see a scarf snake had bit his arm. It quickly retreated to his scarf. Well, that was rude. I didn't even know they could fully move on their own, and I figure it out because it bit me? Forgot about it. Thanks for allowing me to join your team. I'm Izuku Midoriya. What's your name? Purple Boy was startled for some reason, but introduced himself anyway. Hitoshi Shinso. Do you have anyone else on your team yet? No, but I do have a couple ideas. Hey Midori, can I join your group? Uraraka asked as she appeared behind him. Izuku nearly jumped out of his skin. He landed beside Shinso and glared at Uraraka. Uraraka looked slightly sheepish. So, can I join your team? Uraraka asked. What do you think, Shinso? I'm alright with it. From what I saw in the first round, her quirk is useful. The group of three tried to find a fourth member. Uraraka tried asking Ida, but he didn't want to rely on Uraraka and Izuku for everything. So he declined. After searching for a while, Shinso was about to go get someone, whatever that meant. They were approached by a slightly dejected but still highly energetic pink-haired girl with strange goggles on her head. Hey Green, let me join your team. I saw you hit Explodo with the short purple kid. I know you would make good use of my throwable babies. Babies? Why do you want me to throw your child? Why did you bring your child into the sports festival? Izuku questioned with confusion and concern. This is my favorite baby I brought today. It's a super cool baby that lets me fly for short periods of time. The girl showed off her boots and used them to hover off the ground. Oh, you didn't mean literal children. Izuku sighed with relief. I made them so they are my babies. So you're the one who threw my neta at Bakugo, Uraraka said. You heard nothing. What's your name? Shinso asked the pink-haired girl. I'm Mei Hatsum, future CEO of Hatsum Industries. Why do you want to join our team? I want to show off how amazing my babies are, and the first and second place participants didn't see the value of my amazing babies. We aren't going for attention, though, Shinso said. But look at this baby, Hatsum said as she pulled something out from her bag. Hatsum, is that a grenade? Shinso asked. Welcome to the team, Izuku said. Shinso looked at him strangely. What? I get to throw a grenade at someone. Who wouldn't accept that offer? Are you okay, Midori? Yes, why wouldn't I be? Everyone get ready because the second round of the UA Sports Festival is about to begin. Present Mike shouted. Shinso was quickly lifted onto the shoulders of the others. Izuku was at the front, so he could have better visibility to throw grenades. Uraraka was on the right and Hatsum was on the left. Hatsum handed Izuku a grenade. Jilo, Midnight shouted and cracked her whip. Almost every team launched themselves at Todoroki so they could steal the 10 million point headband. Izuku quickly picked Bakugo's team out and used one of his scarf snakes like a sling to launch the grenade at him. Unfortunately for Izuku, power loader didn't let first years bring explosives to the sports festival. So instead of giving Bakugo a taste of his own medicine, the blonde was covered in glitter, which was still pretty satisfying. Bakugo tried to see who threw the glitter bomb at him, but Izuku's team didn't stand out to him. Shinso directed them to stay away from the main crowd so they could stay out of sight. Their team watched Team Bakugo and Todoroki start fighting. A large amount of the other teams realized that it would be better to go after teams that didn't have the 10 million points. Izuku was having a great time launching grenades at anyone who tried to steal their points. Eventually, Shinso let the team know that it was time to start getting points. There was a blonde nearby taunting Tsu's team. There seemed to be an invisible barrier blocking Tsu's tongue. Izuku sent a scarf snake to grab his headbands. Izuku was expecting to have to break a barrier and use too much force. The blonde was hit in the side of the head and almost fell off of his team. Izuku grabbed the headbands and launched a glitter bomb at them. 3 minutes left. Present Mike shouted. How many glitter bombs are left? Shinso asked. 7, though we still have 15 flashbangs. Mei said. We have flashbangs. Izuku shouted in surprise. Where are you storing all of these? Uraraka asked. Don't give Midoriya the flashbangs, Shinso commanded. Izuku was not given the flashbangs, much to his disappointment, but he was given more glitter bombs. Their team used Izuku's new strategy of throwing glitter bombs at a team and then running by them and stealing their headbands. Uraraka used her quirk to float Shinso up when someone tried to grab his headbands, and Izuku pulled him down from the sky. Izuku saw Bakugo reaching for the 10 million points headband. Hatsum, flashbang, Izuku stated. No, don't. Shinso was too late to stop anything as Izuku snacked the flashbang and launched it at Bakugo. There was a small flame on the left side of Todoroki's face, and then he was flashbanged. Time's up, everyone. Let's look at the results. In first place with over 10 million points, it's Team Todoroki. In second place with 970 points, it's Team Tetsu. Izuku glanced at the second place team to see that Tokoyami and Aoyama had managed to convince 2 1B students to let them join their team. In third, it's Team B. Wait a second, it's Team Shinso. Where did they come from? And for last team to pass, we have Team Bakugo. Everyone take a break for now because it's time for the recreational games and lunch. Just remember that the next round is the most exciting event in the festival. Present Mike shouted. All of the participants left the field. Izuku was surprised that Bakugo hadn't sought him out to yell at him. Izuku turned to Shinso. Shinso, your quirk is response-based, right? I saw you use it a couple of times. Yeah, so what? Shinso said, suddenly sounding hostile. I know a few things that could get a response. Izuku said. Izuku and Shinso started talking about ways to get people to respond to Shinso. The remaining participants were gathered in one of the rooms waiting to see the matchups for the final round. Izuku was standing next to Shinso. I wonder who I have to lose to. Izuku asked. What do you mean? Don't you want to win the sports festival? Shinso asked. I've done enough to secure my place in 1A. I plan on going underground, and any more attention would be bad for that. The matches finally appeared on screen. Now how do I make my loss look convincing? And never mind. What? Izuku was set to fight against Bakugo. Izuku, being petty, decided that he wouldn't drop out in the first match. He couldn't have Bakugo thinking that Izuku couldn't kick his, but now could he? I'll drop out in my second fight. I have a Pomeranian to punt. The crowd was going wild with excitement over the one-on-one battles. This is the event you've all been waiting for, the one-on-one fights. In this event, you get to live out every middle schooler's dream and watch students beat each other up. Present Mike shouted. First up, we have the mad genius of 1H Hatsum. Fighting her, we have the living vehicle Tenya Ida. Wait, what is Ida wearing? Hatsum had somehow gotten Ida to put on some support gear that she made. There was some talking between Midnight and the two participants before Ida was allowed to wear the support gear. Begin, Midnight shouted as she cracked her whip. Izuku felt bad for Ida. He just got used as an advertisement for the whole round before Hatsum stepped out of bounds. It was safe to say that Ida wasn't very pleased with his fight. Ashido was up against Tokoimi next. Izuku had an idea of how this fight would go, but he could always be wrong. Entering from Gate 1, we have the best bird in 1A. Don't offer him a cracker, please. It's Fumikage Tokoyami. From Gate 2, we have the Dance Revolution Queen. It's Mina Ashido. Present Mike said. Begin, Midnight said. Dark Shadow rushed at Ashido. She tried to hit Dark Shadows with acid, but she was unprepared for the basic tactic of zigzagging. She missed every single acid shot and was shoved out of bounds while Tokoyami led his quirk fight. The fight was over disappointingly quick. From the left, we have the surprised Pikachu Denki Kaminari. From the right, we have the ice-cold warrior Shoto Todoroki. What's with my introduction? Kaminari asks in disappointment. Begin. Kaminari was immediately encased by an iceberg. The giant iceberg was flooding out of the stadium and almost hit the crowd. Even people outside of the stadium could see it. Todoroki was announced as the winner. He unfroze Kaminari and left the iceberg for someone else to clean up. Said person happened to be Endeavor, who was not pleased about being on cleanup duty, which was rather funny. Izuku decided to head down to his prep room despite the extra time it would take to clean up Todoroki's mess. Izuku sat in the prep room drinking a soda he bought from a vending machine. Should I wait for Bakugo to attack me and flip him out of bounds, or should I attack him? Izuku thought, I should attack him. He wouldn't get his ego damaged as much if he lost on a technicality instead of a fair fight, Izuku concluded. After a few minutes of plotting, Endeavor finally finished cleaning up the stadium like the good little janitor he was. From the first gate, we have the blonde bomber of Class 1A Katsuki Bakugo. Present Mike announced. Izuku pulled his scarf over his nose to block out any dust. From the second gate, we have the serpent of 1A Izuku Midoriya. Meanwhile, at the Midoriya household. Inko, look. Izu's on the TV. Eri said. She sounded happy, but she wasn't smiling. That was something Inko had noticed. Eri didn't smile. Inko really wanted to find something to make her smile. Unfortunately, she didn't know what to do yet, so she sat down next to her. Yes, Eri, he is. Fight! Midnight shouted. Bakugo and Izuku rushed at each other. Bakugo tried to hit him with a right hook explosion, but Izuku slid under it and kicked his ankles. Izuku quickly got out of the way of an explosion. What was that, DKU? Why aren't you using your quirk, huh? I've beaten you in a fight without it. If you want me to use it, make me. Is he really that upset that I didn't use my quirk on the first attack? You looking down on me, DKU. Bakugo once again rushed at him. Instead of an explosive right hook, he went for a very telegraphed explosion to the face that allowed Izuku to duck and sweep Bakugo's legs out from under him. Izuku tried to pin Bakugo to the ground, but he was hit by an explosion to the chest. He quickly stood up and got into a fighting stance. Bakugo blasted towards him. Izuku sidestepped and grabbed Bakugo's arm to slam him into the ground. Bakugo managed to land an explosion to his arm. Bakugo kept attacking him, and Izuku kept dodging or using Bakugo's attacks against him. "Stop dodging, you coward." Izuku decided to respond in the best way possible, sarcasm. "Yes, O King Bakugo, I shall intentionally allow myself to be exploded instead of fighting back." Izuku said this managed to anger Bakugo enough to use his special attack. Bakugo blasted himself into the air and used his explosions to start spinning. The smoke from the explosions started to spin around him, most likely blocking his vision. Izuku ran around Bakugo and covered his ears. Bakugo shouted his attack name in a way that someone sure of his victory would. "Howitzer impact!" Bakugo shouted as he released a massive explosion from his hands. Izuku was almost knocked off his feet by the blast, but he managed to stay standing. Bakugo was standing in front of a dust cloud trying to see what happened to Izuku. Izuku silently ran at him. Izuku kneed his back into the ground and put Bakugo's hands against the back of the blonde's head, effectively pinning him down. "This seems familiar, doesn't it?" Izuku asked. Bakugo did his best to get up, but he was unable to move enough to escape. "Bakugo is immobilized. Midoriya is the winner," Midnight announced. Izuku hopped off of Bakugo and started walking away. Bakugo quietly slinked off, which was a first. Coming out from the left tunnel, we have the forever tired Gen Ed student with a head of messed up cotton candy. It's Hitoshi Shinso. And from the left tunnel, we have the boy who can fix anything with duct tape from his elbows. It's Hanashiro. Present Mike announced. "Fight," Midnight said. Before Zero shot tape at Shinso, the purple boy asked a question. "Isn't tradition just peer pressure from the dead?" Zero, justifiably confused by the question, responded, "Wah," and was immediately brainwashed by Shinso. "Walk out of the arena." Zero walked out of the battlefield very slowly. Midnight stared a moment before announcing Shinso's victory. Izuku clapped loudly, proud that Shinso took his advice on getting people to talk. First on the field, we have the bubbly brunette, it's Achiko Uraraka. Next we have the glitter bomb Yuga Aoyama. "Fight!" Mineta shouted something perverted. Luckily for everyone, Tsu used Zero to tape Minetta's mouth shut. Uraraka dodged Aoyama's first laser but was scraped by the second. Uraraka pushed through the pain and tried to get closer to him. Aoyama's thought process did not involve Uraraka getting close to him, so when he started floating, he didn't give a thought to physics and tried to shoot her with his laser. This, of course, ended with him being blown out of the arena and into the wall. Aoyama is out of bounds. Uraraka is the winner. From Gate 1 we have the jungle of 1B Ibara Shiozaki. Present Mike announced, and from Gate 2 we have the living crafting table Momo Yaoyorozu. Start your fight. Shiozaki sent her vines to try and restrain Yaoyorozu. Yaoyorozu used her quirk to create. Is that a chainsaw? Yaoyorozu turned on the chainsaw and started tearing through Shiozaki's vines like a psycho. Anytime Shiozaki's vines got close, there was a chainsaw in the way, though the large mass of vines meant that Yaoyorozu wasn't making much progress either. Yaoyorozu tossed the chainsaw aside and made a flamethrower. Yaoyorozu set fire to the vines near her. Shiozaki's tried to put the fire out, but it only ended with more fire. I yield, Shiozaki shouted, understandably panicked by her hair going up in flames. Yaoyorozu created a fire extinguisher and sprayed Shiozaki's hair down. Yaoyorozu won, and Izuku now had a healthy fear of her. For the final fight of the first level of the one-on-one fights, we have the Man of Steel Tetsu against the embodiment of we have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at home, Ejiro Kirishima. Let the battle begin. Kirishima and Tetsu ran at each other, matching each other blow for blow. It looked like they were just copying each other. It was pretty boring to be honest. Then something interesting happened. Kirishima's arm lit up as he punched Tetsu, and the metallic boy went blasting into the wall. Izuku stared at Kirishima's mangled arm. What in the crusty Krabby Patty was that? Kirishima and Tetsu were taken to Recovery Girl to get any injuries healed. With that exciting end to the first round of matches, it's to begin the next section. Present Mike shouted, but Izuku couldn't stop thinking about Kirishima's little display. Kirishima's quirk is hardening. So how could he have done that? The equation for force, if force equals mass times acceleration. Maybe his hardening affects his mass, and it evolved to affect acceleration as well? That's a bit weird, but not impossible. He broke his arm, though. Maybe manifesting a new part of someone's quirk is like just getting your quirk. In that case, I might be able to help him. I'll ask after the festival. Are you ready for the second round of the 1vs1 battles? Present Mike shouted. In the first fight, we have the former advertisement Tenya Ida against Hawk's secret love child Fumikage Tokoyami. Wait a minute, who wrote that in my notebook? Izuku managed to catch a small glimpse of something on Todoroki's face, but he didn't know what. With that, interesting commentary over with, Fight Midnight spoke. Ida used his quirk to speed up to Tokoyami, attempting to kick him out of bounds. Dark Shadow redirected Ida's kick and grabbed his arm. Dark Shadow slammed Ida's arm to the ground, causing the boy to hit the ground full force. Ida returned to standing and once again charged at Tokoyami. He managed to avoid Dark Shadow, and he landed a strong kick to Tokoyami's side. Unfortunately for Ida, Dark Shadow had turned around and crashed into Ida, tackling him to the ground just outside of the boundary line. Ida is out of bounds. Tokoyami is the winner, Midnight shouted. Izuku made his way to the entrance tunnel of the arena. He was stopped by a large hand grabbing his shoulder. Izuku ducked out of the grip and spun around ready to fight whoever grabbed him, only to see the number 2 hero. Izuku quickly thought of everything he knew about the hero. Endeavor, real name. Enji Todoroki, quirk, Hellflame. A very strong fire quirk able to destroy villains easily. Estimated villain casualties around 700. Estimated civilian casualties around 500. More property damage than every other Japanese hero combined. Had 4 children. 1 disappeared, most likely dead. Boy, I don't know what your quirk is, but you better put on a show for my Shoto. That seems suspicious. He doesn't seem to be a proud father expressing the care of his child. So why did he say my Shoto? His childish rebellion has gone on for too long. Make him use my fire. My masterpiece is too good to be confined to his mother's power. Masterpiece? Endeavor's fire? His mother's power? I don't have a full scope on what's going on, but I can get the gist of it. Go eat a pufferfish or something and get out of my face, you sad excuse for a hero, Izuku said before he started walking away. What did you just say to me, you brat? I said that you need to get out of the restricted section before I tell someone that the number 2 hero was harassing a UA student. And one more thing, get a new set of eyes because something is clearly wrong with them if you see Todoroki as a masterpiece. Izuku turned the corner and entered the tunnel. For this fight, we have the human popsicle Shoto Todoroki against the boy whose most defining feature is a scarf, Izuku Midoriya. Hey Todoroki, how often do you want to punch your dad in the face? I just met him, and the more he spoke, the more I realized he has a face that's just begging to be hit. Todoroki didn't have a large reaction, but the twitch of his lips seemed like a good sign. Fight! Midnight shouted. Todoroki tried to freeze Izuku, but he was able to dodge the oncoming ice. Todoroki sent another wave of ice. Izuku tried to jump out of the way, but his foot got caught in the ice. One of his scarf snakes bit the ice near his foot, breaking more of the ice than Izuku was expecting. At least Izuku's foot was freed. Todoroki kept sending wave after wave of ice that Izuku either dodged or broke out of. The volume of ice became less and less. Izuku saw that frost was appearing on Todoroki's right side. Is that the effect of only using one side of his quirk? He could easily fix that if he used his fire, even if he didn't attack with it. He's willing to hurt himself for something that petty. Upon this realization, Izuku decided that Todoroki was being an idiot and decided to knock some sense into him. You're hurting yourself, Todoroki. Your body is freezing. Todoroki's eyes slightly narrowed. Did my father put you up to this? Why would I do anything that Spitwad wants me to do just because he said so? So he did. Look, I was going to just leave it alone and ignore him, but I'm not going to let someone hurt themselves for any reason. I don't know what happened exactly, but at least use it enough to not freeze to death. I will never use my father's flames. Izuku face-bombed. Then don't use his flames, use yours. What does that mean? As much as you seem to hate Endeavor, you still have a similar thought process regarding your quirk. Endeavor's fire this, Endeavor's fire that. Get your head on straight. It's your fire, not his. And if he says otherwise, put out his fire beard. Todoroki stared blankly at Izuku for a moment. His eyes seemed to be seeing something else. You there, Todoroki? Todoroki's left side burst into flames. What kind of crazy are you? Helping your enemy. Don't you want to win? Izuku prepared to charge, and Todoroki's hands moved forwards. A single thought crossed Izuku's mind. Didn't I plan on losing this round unremarkably? Concrete walls arose from the center of the arena, but Todoroki's attack broke through them. Izuku blacked out. Todoroki wins. Hello, everyone. I'm here to announce that there will be a delay in the next fight while the arena is repaired. Don't worry about the competitors. We have Recovery Girl on standby to heal them. Izuku woke up in the infirmary. Recovery Girl was also in the infirmary and noticed that he was awake. She quickly waddled over and hit him on the head. What were you thinking, you idiot child? You could have gotten yourself killed. In my defense, I wasn't expecting an explosion. Because of this, you have to stay here for the rest of the festival to heal. Go back to sleep now. Recovery Girl used her quirk on him to heal him and make him pass out. The repairs are finally finished, so it's time for the next fight. We have the boy with eye bags the size of a car, Shinso Hitoshi, against the girl who floated into the ceiling multiple times, Achiko Uraraka. Begin. Shinso spoke before Uraraka moved to attack him. There is no physical evidence that today is Tuesday. We just have to trust that someone kept count since the first one ever. Huh? Uraraka asked with a pale face. Was that too much for you? You have single-handedly ruined my day. Shinso took control of Uraraka. Walk out of the arena. Uraraka slowly started walking out of the arena. Uraraka crossed the boundary line and Shinso was announced the winner. First up, we have the Rocky Boy Ejiro Kirishima against the most unhinged member of class, 1A Momo Yaoyorozu. Fight! Kirishima hardened his body and ran at Yaoyorozu, intending to take her out quickly. Yaoyorozu created a pickaxe. Anytime Kirishima got close to Yaoyorozu, she used her pickaxe to chip off a piece of his skin. Yaoyorozu realized that this fight and used her next tactic, a full-sized cannon. The cannon blasted a cannonball at Kirishima. Kirishima's great strategy was to take it head-on. He was able to tank the first cannonball, but was knocked over by the second. Yaoyorozu took the chance to create a sledgehammer and repeatedly slam it into Kirishima's chest until his hardened skin started to crack. Kirishima grabbed the sledgehammer and ripped it out of Yaoyorozu's hands and threw it away. Kirishima stood back up, but he was unstable. Yaoyorozu shot the cannon again. This time Kirishima was knocked much further back than the first two times. He was right on the edge of the boundary line. Yaoyorozu ran up to him and slammed a new sledgehammer into his face, making him fall out of bounds. Yaoyorozu wins. Almost anyone who wasn't afraid of Yaoyorozu after her first fight was scared now. Are you all ready for the semifinals? For the first fight, we have the emo bird Fumikage Tokoyami against the boy who decided that the arena didn't look good and had to be destroyed, Shoto Todoroki. Midnight was standing at the very back of her podium, probably trying to avoid any potential explosions without leaving her post. Fight! Todoroki performed his usual strategy of making an iceberg. Unfortunately, Dark Shadow broke through the ice. Todoroki didn't try freezing them again. He sent giant pillars of ice fly at them and crash into them, sending them out of bounds. Todoroki wins. A bit anticlimactic after his last fight, but not every fight can be epic. For the second fight of the semifinals, we have the boy who I'm losing descriptors for Shinso Hitoshi, and his opponent is the most terrifying student of this year, Momo Yaoyorozu. Fight! The term dumpling implies the existence of a large dumple. What size do you think the large dumple would be? Maybe like the size of a human head. Yaoyorozu pulled out a bat and started running at him. I'd say it'd be around the size of a... Yaoyorozu froze, almost falling down because of her momentum. Walk out of the arena, Shinso said. Yaoyorozu left the arena. What's with all of the anticlimactic fights? Shinso wins. Welcome to the final battle of the UA Sports Festival. We have the boy who won all of his fights without lifting a finger, Shinso Hitoshi. As his opponent, we have the student who gave the cold shoulder to almost all of his opponents, Shoto Todoroki. Will this fight be another easy victory for one of these competitors, or will it be a difficult fight? Let's find out. Fight. Todoroki froze Shinso inside an iceberg, but Shinso could still talk. Did you know that Lego people live in houses made of their own flesh? Unfortunately for Shinso, Todoroki barely ever talks, and he had a bad parent, so he didn't know what Legos were. No matter what Shinso said, Todoroki didn't talk even when Shinso asked important questions like, "Do crabs think fish are flying?" Or statement phrased as questions such as, "Did you know that your bones are wet?" The match ended with Todoroki as the winner of the sports festival. Izuku had finally been let out of the infirmary a few minutes after the final fight ended. He made his way to his class's seating area. Izuku arrived just as the podiums were being raised into the stadium. He was glad to see Shinso on the podium. Hopefully that meant the hero student who did the worst in the festival, Mineta, would be replaced. All Might landed next to Midnight. All Might moved to the podium to give medals. He gave the bronze medals to Tokoyami and Yaoyorozu and whispered something to them. He repeated the action with Shinso and Todoroki. "I think it's time we give a cheer for all of our brave competitors." All Might shouted thank you for the hard work. Plus Ultra, the crowd shouted. There was an awkward moment of silence. Izuku took this time to look around the class section. He noticed Ito was not there. Sometime after the sports festival ended, Izuku made his way home. Breaking news. Turbo Hero Ingenium attacked by Hero Killer, possible career-ending injuries.